Indonesia's disaster agency says the earthquake and tsunami that hit the island of Sulawesi on Friday killed at least 380 people. All the victims found so far were in the city of Palu, which was struck by a 3-metre tsunami. Photographs from the city show bodies lying in the streets, buildings that have been completely flattened. Andy Moore reports.
The tsunami struck very soon after a powerful earthquake. Some people had already taken to higher buildings for safety. You can see here the dome of the mosque has already collapsed. The double disaster occurred on Friday evening, just as many worshippers would have been heading to prayer. The fate of hundreds of people who were due to attend a beach festival to celebrate the city of Palu's anniversary is unknown.
Allahu Akbar.
Here you can see a collapsed bridge, a sign of the huge forces that battered the city.
Allahu Akbar.
The death toll is growing rapidly and currently stands in the hundreds, with hundreds more injured. Indonesia's disaster agency said thousands of homes had been destroyed.
As for the tsunami damage, we've received a number of reports that many bodies were found along the shoreline, but the numbers are still unknown.
With bodies lining the streets, the scale of the clear-up operation is enormous. The city's airport has been badly damaged. Major roads are closed. But relief aid is being moved to the area from the capital, Jakarta. Indonesian authorities say a tsunami warning was issued, but lifted half an hour after the quake. It's unclear whether the wave had already hit the coastline by then. Andy Moore, BBC News.
Tom Howells from Save the Children joins me now from Jakarta. Tom, thanks for being with us on BBC World News. Can you tell us what you've been able to do to help?
No, thank you. Yeah, obviously, at the moment, the communications are down, and it's been very difficult to get information from the scene, as you reported. What we've done in Save the Children is we've dispatched stock from our Jakarta warehouse, which is on its way to the location in central Sulawesi, and we've dispatched a team to assess. Obviously, we didn't have a presence on the ground before the earthquake and tsunami, and so we're still trying to get stock and people to the location now.
Is there a problem getting into the airport in Palu?
Yeah, the airport has been damaged. The communications function of the airport has been damaged, so it's very hard to get into the airport. We are looking at local airports that are close by, and then the routes from those airports to the Palu area. So those are some of the things that we're looking at now and some of the challenges we're facing. We do believe that we will be able to get people in by tomorrow.
And we've heard stories of, well, so many houses being flattened. People's homes have just disappeared. So are you, besides bringing medical help, are you also thinking about being able to shelter people, perhaps for some time?
That's exactly right. So, in this first phase of response, obviously there's the search and rescue operation, which we would not be involved in. But then also from our side, the stocks that we'll be dispatching, they are shelter kits. So they are, tarpaulins, blankets, and various other implements to help people make temporary shelter. And then other supplies like hygiene supplies and household supplies, things that they've lost, things that will help them stay clean and healthy in the coming weeks. Just basic essentials to keep people going for the next few weeks.
When you get a disaster on this magnitude, Tom, do you bring in help and experts from other countries as well?
We sometimes do. Obviously, it would depend on the Indonesian government's request. So in Indonesia, Save the Children has an Indonesian entity, so we are able to operate on the ground with our Indonesian staff, and we have many capable Indonesian staff across, health, education, and child protection sectors. So we're able to provide professional expertise to the government. And if the government does allow international assistance, then we would bring in other experts from across the organisation.
Well, Tom Howells, good luck to you and to your team there in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Let's talk now to Endang Nurdin from the BBC's Indonesia service. Endang, we were just saying you have been to Palu. Tell us a little bit about it, how big it is.
Palu is the capital of Central Sulawesi, and it is a city with a population of around 350,000. And the beaches there is very popular with local people. and there are at least 2 shopping malls, hotels, and residential areas not far from the shorelines. So when the tsunami with this magnitude happened, people are still busy there, especially in Friday afternoon, where there were around hundreds of people preparing for the beach festival, which had been
you'd have had families, you'd have had a lot of people going to the beach for that time.
Exactly, and that's when the tsunami occurred.
In Palu, obviously in Indonesia as a whole, you have earthquake and tsunami warnings. We report on this, but what about Palu itself? Had it been hit before?
Palu was hit by 2 huge tsunamis in 1927 and also in 1968, with big waves as high as 15 meters were reported then. And I'd like to say that based on what the Natural Disaster Agency reported, the number of casualties, which is currently 384 people died, is only from Palu. But we haven't heard anything from Donggala, the hardest hit fishing town, which is around 70 kilometers or around 40 miles from Palu. The communications and the highway there was cut off because of landslide. So that's why the the Natural Disaster Unit said that the number of casualties are expected to rise.
So for the Indonesian service, you have this feeling and this fear that we're seeing a slice of the picture only.
Yes, exactly, and we are still waiting, and also in Palu itself, because of their worries about the fate of hundreds of people who were on the beach when the tsunami occurred.
And it sounds as if, from what you're telling me about the history of Palu, they've probably rebuilt the town once, and then again, and then this is hit. And we see from our pictures how severe the damage is.
Yes, exactly. And also there are debates in social media in Indonesia about they criticize the meteorological unit of not giving long warning when the tsunami happens. They said why the tsunami alert was only for half an hour and it was lifted, and it was then when the huge tsunami occurred in the city.
I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the hours to come. Endang, thank you so much for coming in. Let's return to the earthquake and tsunami which have killed nearly 400 people in Indonesia. The BBC's Mahulika Sitepu in Jakarta told me people are talking about when the tsunami warning was lifted.
Disaster management agencies say that it was not from the 7.5 magnitude quake, but it's from a landslide underneath the ocean, and that's why they didn't detect it, the tsunami. And that is also why many people didn't realize that it was coming, and many people basically swept from the waters that was up to 6 meters high and destroyed so many buildings.
Yes, so many people were caught on the beach. They were planning for a beach festival, a beach party, weren't they?
Yes, and until now, so many people who involved in the festivity are still unknown where they're at, and that's why like dozens of people are still missing. Besides the almost 400 people died. That's why the rescue team is now racing against time. They need to find more people. Probably they were swept away by the waters, or they were trapped underneath the rubbles, because the destruction was huge. 8-story building was basically collapsed and flattened to earth, where there were hundreds of people there. A huge bridge that connects the northern and the southern part of the island of the city. It's a modern construction, and it's also destroyed. So the destruction was huge, and the rescue team is now needs to get there, needs to find more people. They're racing against time.
And are you hearing anything from outside Palu? Have you got any sources of information there, or not yet?
Oh, The communications was cut because the power cut because of the earthquake. So now, presumably, all the people in the city and the island nearby, they were without waters, without electricity, and also without communications.